Recently, I was on Twitter and Hardware Unbox had a poll going on who had the better driver package between AMD, Nvidia, and Intel. And while Intel's drivers are currently a joke, the one that was in the lead was Nvidia. And as the resident AMD driver expert, I gotta say, it's pretty wrong. And I am saying this from the perspective of somebody who's used both drivers. And I think that part of this is because people really don't know everything that the AMD drivers can actually do. So today, I'm going to show you. Let's get right into it. Hello and welcome, guys. My name is Wolfie. You're watching GreaterThanPie, and today we're going to be talking AMD drivers, and specifically the AMD Radeon software that comes with your drivers. Adrenaline. Now, I did not just say Adrenaline for no good reason. Adrenaline is the name of the software package, and it used to be called Catalyst back in the day. In fact, actually, the last time NVIDIA actually updated their driver package, it looked very similar to Catalyst. But GeForce Experience and the AMD driver software are going to be more comparable because the GeForce Experience is, while separate, is intrinsically tied to the features of the NVIDIA GPUs. Now, let's take a look at AMD's offering, because this is a video, of course, about AMD's drivers. Looking right here on the homepage, you can already see a lot of nice to haves and creature comforts, such as driver updates being front and center, allowing you to download and install them from one button. You've also got your AMD Link status if you are using AMD Link. There are also tutorials, which are unfortunately not my tutorials, so I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to Photoshop my own video here. You've also got media capture, which is through Radeon Relive, which includes a bunch of really useful features. We'll go over that in a little bit, along with your game and your game averages. This is actually really cool because the last game you played will come up right here with the average frames per second. And if you actually click in on it, you can see everything from like the percentiles to the performance grade and then additional settings, because you can actually change each individual game settings if you want to, along with what day you played that. I haven't played a game in 6 days. Being sick sucks. And you can see options right here, such as like turning on FreeSync, global scaling. Personally, what I actually find interesting, for example, we've got Forza Horizon 5, which actually has a bad implementation with FreeSync. You can actually force it off from this and then turn it on for everything else, which is one of the many things that is really, really, really cool about the AMD driver. So I guess let's really kind of go over the gaming tab. So inside the gaming tab, you have actually two major things. You've got global graphics and global display, along with each individual game that's installed. After you run it, it will give it a score, it will allow you to change settings, and it will allow you to tweak performance. If you go to the global graphics, this actually sets everything. I personally leave this as default as you possibly can. This also in the global setting allows you to change your display, which has everything from FreeSync Premium, Virtual Super Resolution, GPU scaling, scaling modes, integer scaling, which is really, really cool. Color depth, pixel formats, color display enhancements, which really I leave that off by default, but you may prefer seeing that. That is vivid gaming versus regular. You can change the various pixel formats from here. Display specs, it'll actually tell you exactly what the display you're running on looks like and what its response rate is. Now, it's going to be a little weird for the display right now because this is running through a capture card, so it's kind of guesstimating. You also have custom color, which is really cool because it can allow you to adjust color settings in a display that doesn't have custom color settings. Color deficiency, which is again a way of correcting for a display not having all those colors. Custom resolutions, which, as you can imagine, allows you to set a resolution that is not the resolution of a display. Overrides, which is again another feature in which you can set overclocking targets or even really just all sorts of crazy cool stuff in here. So you can see voltage swings. You can literally overclock your display from your overrides. And then, of course, AMD Privacy View, which again, I've never used that one, but it's pretty interesting that you can do that. And then you can also, this takes you to arrange your displays, your desktop color, and enable cloning. And then you can do this for both displays, display 1 and display 2. Back on your graphics tab, you can see things like Radeon Super Resolution, or RSR. RSR allows you to take 1080p footage to 1440p or 1440p to 4K. Turning it on just simply will upscale any game that is not at the display's targeted resolution. Radeon Anti-Lag, we've done a bit on that feature, but essentially it reduces your incoming frame rate to increase the frame time so that your average frame rate averages to the frame time so that you have the most up-to-date information. It also withholds a couple frames to actually skip frames if necessary. It's an interesting feature. It works in a lot of cool ways, and NVIDIA actually did copy it after it came out. Radeon Chill is a FPS limiter that is built right into the software. It actually is preferable to having an in-game version of this because it actually works on a hardware level. Radeon Boost is a dynamic resolution scaler that is based off of the movement of a game. So when you're doing things with like a lot of motion blur or games that have motion blur, turning this on can actually help because that blur doesn't need to be super high resolution. Radeon Image Sharpening automatically sharpens the screen. It does work off of an integer system though, so it's not like the same as just turning up the sharpness filter. It's actually pretty cool, and we actually did a video on that one as well. Radeon Enhanced Sync, never use this. You can, but it's not advisable because you should just use Radeon Chill instead. Radeon Enhanced Sync tries to compensate for a lack of VSync, and it disables VSync if it exists. So it actually breaks more games than it works in. Wait for vertical refresh rate. Again, that's another setting entirely for VSync. Now, if you have FreeSync, that should just be on and it will override any of these settings anyway. Frame rate target control limits your FPS to a steady rate. This is to lock it to a specific amount so it will boost or slow down depending on what you need to actually get it there. Anti-aliasing, you can override anti-aliasing inside of an application, which that's what all of these are. You can do filtering as well, texture filtering, surface format optimization, which is on by automatically. Tessellation, OpenGL, triple buffering. All this stuff is just stuff that's normally in a game, but you can override it from here if you wanted to. Now from the global settings, you can also see everything about your system, how much VRAM, the GPU you're running, who made your GPU, how many CUs, what BIOS is on it, which is really useful, PCIe 4.0. But yeah, you can see everything about your processor too, all that stuff. If you got an AMD processor at least. Bug reporting, detect issues, factory resets, reset game status, all sorts of good stuff. You can even set automatic updates. Audio video, you've got AMD noise suppression. This is brand new. In fact, actually, I should turn this on the capture PC because I have access to it. This is the same as the NVIDIA smart noise suppression. And video profile, this is your pretty typical, video profiles, that kind of thing. Hotkeys, you can set all the hotkeys for this so that you can get to the various places. Accounts, you can link your accounts. I have linked nothing. AMD Link, it's currently not set up on my gaming PC, which is what we're capturing. I did an entire video about AMD Link. It's a really cool feature that allows you to remote into your PC and even see your PC stats from your smartphone. Relive for VR. They actually have VR specific integration with Relive, which Relive is the AMD driver based video capture system. Personally, I use OBS, but Relive is actually good in a pinch. Recording and streaming settings. This is again for Relive. You can have recording your desktop, show indicators, borderless capture, all sorts of good stuff. You can set your frame rate from 30 to 60, different bit rates, all sorts of stuff to make it easier for you, the user, to actually use it. Microphone levels, all sorts of good stuff. Performance. You can set the performance sampling intervals from here. So how many intervals per second it does it. Metric overlays, turning them on and off, hiding metric overlays during debug, etc. Now, I will get into performance a little bit later because that's actually one of the cooler tabs in this system. And then here's some preference. So Steam VR integration for Relive, which is really cool that it has it built in. You can put in your headset for that, which is pretty cool. Whether or not you could overlay, put it always on top, that kind of thing. So lots of cool stuff. And that's just in one section of this. That was global graphics, which also connects to global display. So that was just the global settings, right? Then in the gaming tab, you can granularly select these settings again just for a specific game, which is why I don't touch the global graphics all that often, because I usually find that a specific game dictates a specific rule. So for example, Forza Horizon 5 does not cooperate with FreeSync very well in the Hot Wheels area. So I have forced in the drivers to have FreeSync off by default when I am playing this game. So that way it will not turn on despite both of these displays being capable of running FreeSync. I can come in here as well, right? Go back to the gaming tab. Let's locate a game that does not run at 1440p like Skyrim, right? And I can automatically say, hey, I want to have Radeon Super Resolution, which is going to cut out here for a second. And now by default, when Skyrim runs, it's going to run Radeon Super Resolution when it plays. And it may run at 50 frames per second, but that's because it has a VSync implementation that is tied to its engine. And we can do Radeon anti-lag. So let's just say that I want to do Radeon Super Resolution and Radeon anti-lag. I could just turn them on specifically for this game and this game only. And this works with just about every single game on here too. Which brings us to the next tab, recording and streaming. This is the Radeon Relive. I think they just call it recording and streaming now, but you can have your microphone, your camera, all sorts of cool stuff all put together. Full screen, Windows. It's just a very easy drag and drop, get in here and start recording kind of situation. As I said, I personally use OBS, but that's because I outgrew this ecosystem. When I first started this channel, I did use this to record. You have live streams as well. All of that stuff is all built right into here and can be used entirely through the GPU. And of course, you have a scene editor, which is very, very, very similar to how OBS does it. In fact, your camera would be right here. Your main game would be up here. And then you can actually add other elements such as GIFs, videos, browser sources. It's very similar to OBS. It's actually really nice, but the difference is it's just built into your drivers. And of course, media is where all of your captures end up. Now, my favorite tab, performance. Now, performance is great for a lot of reasons because it shows you everything about your system. If you got an all AMD system, you will be able to see so much about all of your hardware from here. Not only that, but you also have the ability to put that right on the screen, which is really cool. Make it nice and big if I wanted to. But you can also choose the location, whether it's on the left or the right, all the good stuffs. And this actually shows you a lot more information than most software. In fact, actually, the fact that you have to download something like MSI Afterburner to actually track NVIDIA's GPUs already shows that this is useful. It really is useful. And you could even make it do this too, which is really cool. You can show, you could do it like this where it's just like all text. And then you can have the graph if you wanted to. And then on top of that, there's built-in overclocking in the AMD software. That's right. You can overclock your CPU or your GPU right from here. I actually have a custom profile already set that I could just import. And it's called the Beans. This is an overclocked profile that just makes this GPU go crazy. Do I need it? No. Do I have to use it all the time? No. Is the PC restarting now because it's got to apply it? Yes. So that restart was because I actually enabled CPU overclocking, in which it just actually created a CPU offset. Now there's this aggressive curve because yes, you can set your own fan curves here. You can disable 0 RPM modes, smart access memory, voltage controls, like everything you could possibly need is right here. Also, if you aren't as into overclocking, you can just click that button right there, enable rage mode, and now your GPU is going to just run as hard as it can, as long as it can. And then of course for CPU overclocking, you've got the auto overclocking where it just runs an overclock test, sees what it can do, and it goes boom. All right. So run that. It's going to restart the entire system, and it's going to come up with whatever overclock it thinks your system can run. And there you can see it went ahead and it created an overclock for this. Now, what's funny is this GPU overclock that it's got applied isn't really the highest this GPU can go. I've had it go even higher than that, but it's not a bad overclock automatically. So we'll just go ahead and we'll just save this profile, which we can do from right here. And we'll just call this Auto OC. And that will save that profile in for us. We can also run a stress test to make sure everything's stable right from here. There's also this advisory tab, which hilariously advises you on what GPU you should upgrade to next, or if you should upgrade. I find it hilarious because for the longest time, I had a 5700 XT, which at the time was the best AMD GPU that they made, which means there was no way to upgrade. So it just said performance, upgrade, none. And then eventually they came up with a GPU that would be an upgrade for it, but it was like unobtainium. It was hilarious. Man, that was a weird time to be in AMD's software suite. But now things are just, in general, so much better. And there is a lot of stability here now that wasn't here prior. This has been a work in progress. Heck, everything that we just went over now is going to become a moot point in the near future, because while the tabs that I have shown off, such as this one specifically, all these features are confusing, and AMD knows that they're confusing. I did videos on every single one of these. Radeon Super Resolution, Anti-Lag, Radeon Chill, Image Sharpening, Enhanced Sync. I didn't do one on Enhanced Sync because I consider it useless. But point is, I did a video on every single one of these. There's a playlist that is going to be linked for this. And the reason I had to do it was because AMD Adrenaline didn't explain any of it. And why I say it's going away, though, is because at some point, very soon, AMD is going to have a one-button press optimization. Now, whether or not it's actually going to be good, we'll find out. But that will be a video in and of itself at a later date. And there we have it. Everything your AMD drivers can do. Are there some things that you didn't know you could do? I'm sure there was. There's already a very popular series on my channel just explaining all the crazy things you can do with AMD drivers. And while feature for feature, AMD and NVIDIA do actually match each other, there are some things that NVIDIA does, and there are some things that AMD does that the other does not. Additionally, AMD has the advantage of vertical integration. Now, vertical integration is somewhat controversial in the tech space, but think of it how Apple has all of their applications designed to work specifically with Apple devices. AMD has a processor and a graphics division. Because of that, they actually have intercompatibility in their software that allows for additional features to be enabled from their drivers that could not be enabled from competitors' drivers. Think of the fact that you can actually overclock your AMD CPU from your Radeon software drivers. That is not something that you can currently do through the GeForce Experience. Additionally, GeForce Experience is one app out of two. The drivers and the actual app are actually separated. Now, this is something that works beneficially to some people because you are able to install the drivers without having to install the other stuff. And because GeForce Experience is its own thing, it does mean that there are going to be some things that are difficult to find if you don't know if they're in one or the other. This is opposed to AMD that integrated everything into one, which can be to its detriment sometimes. The most popular video on this channel is me fixing AMD drivers because everything's so closely integrated. And I'll leave a link to my AMD playlist so that you can actually take a look to it. There's going to be a card up here, which is all the videos I've done on these drivers. And I do think that a lot more of you guys are interested in AMD than you were prior, because right now in the GPU market, if you're buying a $1,000 GPU, you're going to be buying a 7900 XTX. If you're buying a $700 GPU, you might be buying a 7900 XT. And that is because those two GPUs are just so competitive at their prices against the competition, who is respectively hitting $1,500, $1,000, and $800 on their GPUs. Meaning that AMD is currently undercutting NVIDIA on every level, and the 7900 XTX is a pretty good value for just rasterized performance. But I don't really need to sell you on that. That is something that you already know. And I'm sure that you guys have some opinions on this, and you can leave a comment down below on those. Maybe consider subscribing, and if you really like our content, consider supporting us. I'll see you in the next video. Wolfie, out.